So when we see these kind of stumbling blocks along the way, it's really been sad to watch the credibility of the field be impacted. And then right where the rubber meets the road as far as the financial aspect here, the result has been that we see a new energy device comes into the scene and the investment dollars scurry away. Now why is that? It's because most investors who have large sums to invest, they have technical advisors that they rely on. Oftentimes those technical advisors are coming from a mainstream science discipline. And in order to protect their own credibility, they're going to be very, very conservative in their recommendations because they don't want to send their client on a wild goose chase that ends up costing them a lot of money. And so everyone has a little vested interest in it. And I can't blame you. I'm an inventor myself, not in the energy field, but in the water treatment field. And I know it takes a long time to go from the point of the back of the napkin idea on through the research and development, the patenting, the licensing, and hopefully end up with a product that actually has real market value. And I've gone through all of that, even to the point of an acquisition of the technology by much larger corporations. So these things do not happen by themselves. It's a slow, gradual process with a lot of disciplines along the way, a lot of people with their own individual talents and skills that have to be brought to bear on these. And no inventor or small, isolated team can do that by themselves. They need real resources and real talented people who can be trusted and who are going to perform. So we've found, as Ruby pointed out in her presentation, that the academic and science communities have remained wary and very skeptical of the new energy claims. And in cold fusion in particular, we've seen some of those who portray themselves as the lords of science because they're coming from a highly recognized, reputable academic institution, and maybe have been a bit too quick at making pronouncements such as that cold fusion is junk science. But from the standpoint of seeing how often the inventor claims have been invalid, it's not surprising that's been the general approach and perspective from the science community. So how do we turn this whole scene around? Well, we started discussing this at last year's Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference in the Netherlands. And I had come away from that conference thinking, someone's got to start putting some pen to paper on this to start constructing a framework for how we might do this. And these were some of the things that have now come about here. So the first idea is that we established rigorous protocols for assessment of breakthrough energy technologies to be able to validate the performance claims. Then we open source those testing standards to the new energy research community, the investment community, and the vetting community. So now everyone is using the same songbook. Now when I essentially was doing my own kind of market survey among a lot of highly credentialed engineers and scientists as far as this whole premise, well, the valuable feedback was, hey, that sounds like a really good idea. We do need this. Sounds like a lot of work. Doesn't sound very exciting. Which, guess what? Having worked on various protocol development committees in the water treatment field over the last 4 years or so, including for the state of New Jersey and the Environmental Technology Verification Program of the country of Canada, I can tell you that it's not exciting work, especially when you're doing it on a volunteer basis. When you're a volunteer, it takes a lot of time when you're bringing together a committee of people to try to establish these test standards. It's one of these like mundane things that are behind the scenes. No one knows, or really cares about this because it's just like blah. What a dry thing to do. But like so many things that power our society, it's the little things that are laying that foundation for the next layer to where you finally have this whiz-bang something that you're interested in buying. You have an iPhone, guess what? All this boring code that gets gets developed and entered to make one of those devices be what they are. Who's interested in that from the mainstream public? Hardly anybody, unless you're really into that stuff. But people sure like what it does. Well, so who's going to do this? Well, it's probably not going to be someone like this who would rather have, just have a day in the sun and leave the heavy lifting to someone else. But fortunately, we have identified some people who will do this. And what they will do is they'll come together as a technical committee and subcommittees comprised of experienced and respected professionals from the engineering and science disciplines. And some of the comments that have come back from those who've been contacted on this have been very, very positive and encouraging. Like, hey, sounds great, I want to help, but I don't have the time to volunteer. And I fully understand that for the reasons I just described. I've put in hundreds and hundreds of hours as a volunteer in helping to develop testing protocols for the water treatment field. And it's not fun work, it's not easy, and when you're volunteer, you're not getting paid for that. Fortunately, there's people who want to serve because this is what's helping to preserve our environment. And with the pressing problems in the water field, the water pollution issues, and that someone's got to do that lifting. All right, well, I'd like to see people step forward in this realm as well. But I'm not asking them to volunteer, because having some real funding available that can compensate these people to be on the committee and develop the protocols, and put them in a nice compilation that's convenient and available to all through open sourcing. This will happen much, much faster if we can provide them some compensation. I can guarantee you that. And that is the feedback that I got from virtually everyone, to a man or a woman who I had posed the question to. They're like, yeah, if we were, paid something, that would, raise it up on the priority scale. And I fully respect that and understand that. Well, what would the scope of work entail here? Well, it'd be developing some technical assessment protocols for accurately measuring the various common input-output forms of energy. And these would include electrical, magnetic, thermal, mechanical, chemical, and nuclear. So it's pretty wide range, but what we often find here in the new energy field is that any given technology is a hybrid, in that it has an input of one form and output of a different form, or an input of one form and it has 2 or 3 different outputs. You look at the cold fusion field, generally we're looking at some type of electrical input, and we're looking at some type of chemical effect, perhaps, or perhaps a nuclear effect, and we're seeing definitely a thermal output. Maybe something else, maybe with the neutron release in some cases, with some technologies, not all of them. There may be other types of energetic effects as well. But hardly any of these are simply classed as just, well, electrical or magnetic in, electrical out. It's almost always some combination of these. So we need to cover these bases. Also in the scope of work, these individual protocols for those individual energy input-output effects, these would be compiled into a single written document as an easy and comprehensive reference. Now that's something that I think would have great appeal to a lot of people, because a lot of time is wasted when you're simply researching on how are people testing these things. You go to a university lab over here with the same device, you see how they're testing it, you go to a different university lab, they're using a different methodology, different instrumentation, everyone has their nuanced way of going about this. It's not apples to apples. The cold fusion research shows that beyond anything else. We have dozens and dozens of highly qualified vetting teams from highly respected institutions who've looked at this, but not using the same set of protocols. And it results in data all over the map that takes years to figure out what's really going on and to sort out whether an effect was real or not. So having some good comprehensive and well agreed upon protocol of the latest and best and rigorous analytical techniques would be very welcome here. Also in the scope of work, very important and very unique, would be to include a section called Common Errors that draws upon the actual experience of people who've been in the vetting communities and have debunked many of these performance claims of supposed new energy technologies. You know, we have one colleague, Mark Dancy, who's going to be Skyped in at a later presentation. And Mark has looked at it by his own estimate, you know, over 100 claims of breakthrough energy technologies. And he said, you know, well over 90 to 95% of those were just a total waste of time. You know, yet he's flown around the world seeing all these, spending, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that, and many of the other people associated with their time and resources, and it bore no fruit. All right. So what did happen though is a vast experiential brain trust of these people who've had these debunking experiences that can be brought together as a compendium, put as an appendix in a document like this, so that the vetting, well, not only the vetting entities, but the researchers and inventors themselves can check their own device against these common errors. And that will winnow out so much of this. There also is a need for a protocol development coordinator. There always has to be someone who's kind of like, you know, leading the pack and making sure that things are getting done, stay on track, and all that. Not necessarily having to weigh in on any of the technical aspects of it, but basically providing guidance along the way and having the information funneled and kind of being in control of the process to keep it on track and on time, expediting things. So basically that person would oversee the, or basically have reporting come from the chairman of the committee and probably the subcommittee chairman, just to make sure everything is staying on track. And then when ready, that coordinator would release that finished document out through various channels to get this widely disseminated into the new energy community. So the inventors who would actually use those protocols to establish their technical performance claims would definitely enhance their credibility. The other thing that would happen is that they would find that they're in the catbird seat as far as attracting the professional and financial resources to help marshal along their technologies. Right now, most of these inventors who have real technologies of merit are being lost in this whole sea of junk, because there's a lot of dogs out there, you know, among the really good, you know, good and meriting technologies. Now, the vetting professionals themselves would use the exact same protocols to test the device that the inventors had to use to establish their performance claim. And so when that third-party stamp of approval, boom, verified, gets put on this, guess what? Now the investment community has a high degree of confidence. So those investors end up seeing that that third-party verification is essentially a seal of approval. Now they're willing to open up the bank and start supporting these things because their confidence is so high that this is real and we're supporting. Right now, there's just way too much chaff out there to give anyone much confidence. And you know, there is some good solid vetting that is done here and there definitely are some high-performing technologies that are real and that are going to be coming out. But those tend to be, you know, relatively isolated, and there's not much buzz around them because it's all being done under non-disclosure, and generally you may not even be aware of them at a conference like this. Well, what are the expected outcomes? First is a vast reduction in the proliferation of these meritless technologies and all the associated inaccurate performance claims. And that means that there'll be a tremendous conservation of time and finances and the resources that have been expended by both the researcher and inventor communities, the vetting entities as well, and the financial folks. Also, there'll be a much smaller, more concentrated stream of technologies of merit that do become visible. So everyone's attention can be focused on really the vein of gold that's in the mountain. Right now, everyone's just been kind of like burrowing holes in the mountain. And I know what that's like because I've been in the gold mining business for a little bit. And do a lot of core drilling before you find the vein, hopefully. This way, you go right to the vein. So the end result is that there'd be a much faster entry of valuable breakthrough energy technologies into the marketplace and public domain. And that really is why we're here. Because having that outcome means now we can start doing the remediation of our environment. We can start to equalize some of the whole resource depletion issue that's been going on this planet, bring it down to a much, much lower, more sustainable level, and start to make those changes in our society that unleash the human creativity to an unprecedented level. And that's just the possibilities are endless once we get to that point. Now, what's a potential real cost to something like this? $50,000. Plus or minus what, Joel? I don't know. 25,000, perhaps. You know, could go to 100,000. Hard to say, but I think around that number, 50,000, gets us a really good starting point for this, because we can attract and compensate really qualified people who will be proud to have their names on that document, because they will be right up there up front as far as the contributors to the standard protocols, and so they're going to be accountable for what they decided as a group to put in that thing. But I think that this is something that is going to be a pivotal document. And in fact, while it won't be something that will be a bestseller read, it'll be one of those things that has great impact. And those who know the role that it played in helping us get to the new energy era will say, hey, job well done, folks. New energy movement could be an organization that spearheads this project. It's why I brought this forward initially, was to say, look, if the funding is available, we can start moving this ahead. We've made the contacts, the initial contacts, but we're not locked into doing this. Anyone who is really passionate about this, wants to do this in the right way, and wants to take the time and dig in, make sure the resources are brought to bear, get the right people, hey, go at it. Happy to give you all my support and all the contacts I've had. The important thing is that the work gets done. So I ask you to get involved somehow. Read the Breakthrough Power book. If much of what I'm talking about here in the new energy field is a little bit fuzzy, maybe you've heard a little bit about it, you want to learn more, the Breakthrough Power book's a great primer for understanding of what's been going on behind the scenes and what the implications are for all of us, because we're all stakeholders in how this game plays out. You can volunteer to organize events. You can provide support, nonprofit, tax-deductible funding support, help us connect with benefactors, and basically spread the word. Might do something locally, and it's always cool when we see these little groups spring up, start to energize the local new energy community. So just in closing, I want to encourage all of you to continue to hold that vision that something magical and beautiful awaits us. We just stay the course, recruit more of our circle into this, and charge this up with our personal energy. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, but how fast is really up to all of us. If any of you would like to get a hold of me, here's my contact information. And I'm hopeful that we have a little bit of time for questions. How are we doing? We've got 10 minutes? Yep. Oh, great. Okay. Would love to handle any questions. Yes, sir.
Are there any investors already that have stepped up or to put forward to this committee?
No. No. There's some who have spoken about I have an interest, but as far as actually, sending the check, not yet. But the way a lot of funding efforts go. If someone wants to be first, then everyone wants to be second. So that's just kind of the human nature. Yes, sir.
Yeah, as I listened to your presentation, I've heard this material several times, and I think it's imperative. I think we really need to do this. And I'm impatient. I don't want to wait for the money. We've got a lot of volunteers. Do you think, what would happen if we just started, one step at a time, creating pages on here's how to validate a magnet motor, here's how to validate fusion technology, and just get the kind of open source public input? Could you speak to the merits of that approach?
Okay, because the questions may not be heard on the live stream and the recording. In a nutshell, the question is about can we start moving on the protocol development now rather than waiting for funding for professional committees to do this work and kind of get a head start that way. Now, my own personal opinion is that that will actually end up in some redundant effort that will be the non-professional development will end up being put aside in favor of this, very high level, best in class type of document that comes out of this. And I speak to my own experience as having served on a number of protocol development committees. It's better to have the professionals there meeting directly, because I can tell you, this spirals out of control. The editing alone that goes on in protocol development is just so time consuming. So I really would encourage, maintaining the discipline of what's been outlined here. Yes, sir.
Yeah. It just seems like money is a very big thing. It's necessary for anything. And I'd just like to point out that the internet was a basic game changer for new energy. And that if you have listservs with hundreds of 100,000 people, and they have recurrent
I'm not
deductions
seeing the
from
desktop.
credit
Oh,
cards,
it's gone.
say
Okay.
$5 a month. That's $500,000 a month. And that particular thing is a little bit different from a crowdfunding thing where you use it for specific projects, but it would be an ongoing thing. That might be a way to operate. And of course, a wealthy angel investor would also be, but that's the way that you can get started right now.
Okay, yeah, now we're getting a good clean signal. Okay, great.
This sort of setting out about the latest events, the latest discoveries, and encouraging people to set up an account where $5 a month or more, ideally, would come out of their account, and you would get a lot of money that way eventually. There are charities that do that. The AHA Foundation, for example, that I'm a member of, to help women that are being subjugated and so on. It works very well.
That's a good idea. Good idea. There's certainly various funding models that could be applied to this, and I'd encourage anyone who has a good idea on that. Hey, everyone's fully empowered to do this as their own effort and bring it in, and you bring it into New Energy Movement or anyone else who's basically step forward to say, hey, we'll take this on and make it happen. Yes.
I was wondering if there was a sympathetic academic from an engineering graduate studies college or university that they could maybe set up a course and draw graduate students with this professor and somehow get started with some type of analysis of what's needed by using students.
Yes, the answer to that question is I have contacted some of the academics on this, and there's interest in student participation. I think one resource that should be readily tapped for this, is the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEEE. Okay, that is the largest membership-based technical organization on this planet, bar none. And it's stocked full of electrical engineers, many of whom have great experience as far as measurements and standards and testing and In fact, inside IEEE, there's a testing and standards committee. Now, I don't know them personally, but certainly there are those who do belong to that organization and know how to navigate that. I mean, my assumption is that so many of these applicable test protocols already exist. It's a matter of just having those who are most familiar with them to come together, agree on them, and start, putting them in the cookbook. And let's move that thing along. So this could happen very, very quickly if we get the team together, we get some funding to it, and just make it a really nice professional effort and get it out there. And let the ones who put it together get the credit. So I don't care if the project coordinator or whatever gets any credit or not. People are doing the work, are putting it together. Let their names be on that, and away you go. And that's great. Yes, sir.
Have you written this up?
Yes. Yes, I do. I have not yet put it on the New Energy Movement website. In some ways, this has been a test market of the idea here. So, I mean, just kind of in general, are people favorable to the premise? Okay. Well, that's very encouraging. I will make available the document that's been written so far on this, and which, by the way, it does include the actual structure of the test standards itself, kind of like the outline of how they would follow. So it's kind of like get it together, fill in the blanks, and man, let's release it, make it happen. I accept.
But the only thing I would say is that $50,000 is a joke.
It's on the low side.
I think that you got to come way up and have a use of proceeds of really how it's going to go. You're going to have travel money.
Yes. But here's why 50,000 is on the low side, but it's not a joke. Because I currently serve on international protocol development committees for water treatment, which aside from energy, that's water is the biggest deal going on. And those are voluntary committees. So what we're trying to do is fast track this. 50,000 is no joke, but it'd be nice if there was 500,000. You're just going to attract that many more people who will make this happen fast. And I do definitely accept your invitation to be part of this. Yes.
I really applaud this proposal. It's excellent. And I hope that there would be people included on the committees who are knowledgeable about the exotic energy technologies, because some of these inventors say that they're working with what they call, Tesla called radiant energy, and it's not moving electrons. And so when the engineers come along with their standard testing instruments, they don't find anything happening because there's something different going on. So I hope that it would be ensured that people would be included in the committee who understand these things.
That is a great point, Gene. That is a great point. And part of what I did not mention here, but is part of the written protocol, is that when there are anomalous aspects of the new discovery, that the inventor has the prerogative to propose the protocol, the test protocol, to measure that. And that should be judged fairly by this committee. And so the selection process for who would be on those committees would definitely bear in mind, are these real scientists, fair-minded, not dogmatic folks who have vested interests in this whole thing, but who really are men and women of science and have an open mind to this. But allowing the inventor to say, okay, there is no existing protocol, there's nothing you can find out there in the public domain. I'm going to propose my own because this is why I think I can show mine works. Well, heck, they should be the first one with input, right? And that actually may stimulate some other things. And the cold fusion field has gone through this, right? Because there's been in that field so much discussion about, well, you didn't do that right. You've done this, you've done that, and calorimetry this way, and blah blah. Okay, so let's get it on.
Do you think that crowdfunding is appropriate for raising money for this?
Sure, I think crowdfunding would be a great way of going about this. Yes. Did you have a question?
Oh, I did, yeah. be really good at volunteering other people, but I was thinking the makers of test equipment, you know, maybe if you could say, well, we'd like to use your equipment, and would you be interested in supporting this? Obviously, not everybody would be sympathetic, but there is certainly National Instruments who has been fully supportive in the cold fusion field and might go for something like this to develop some type of standards, protocols using their test equipment.
That's a great idea, and I'll add to that. After I had an interview on Coast to Coast AM back in March, and right after that program, I had the chairman of 2 international vetting organizations, private, corporations, who contacted me directly and said, "This is very interesting, and we'd like to help. In fact, we'd be willing to support this in various ways." And I said, "Thank you. And as we get this thing developed a little more, I will definitely come back." The time was not right to tap into those offers, but I hope it will be sometime soon. So yeah, great comment.
I just want to add to what Annie said, and that is, with going to like National Instruments, they have shown definite interest in outside-the-box technologies. We should hone in like a laser on them and have them finance this as advertisement and potential future sales of their equipment as the sponsors of this initiative. That'd be a great marriage. And I also, if you don't mind, Joel, want to bring to their attention the fact that right now you're very busy because your patents have been bought by a very large company and they need all your attention right now. So this initiative needs somebody with your abilities, but who has time right now. And so if somebody else is able to step into what you're saying, you could be an advisor. I just want to bring people's awareness to the fact that you're not presently in the position of spearheading this. Could you speak to that for a second?
Yeah, I think that is a fair statement. New Energy Movement is a volunteer organization at this point. Our staff is not compensated. Virtually all of us have full-time day jobs that support our families, and then we provide our philanthropy of time and dedicated service to move things forward as best we can in the in-between time. So I'm taking my vacation time from work here these couple of days to be here to do this, and there's nowhere else I'd rather be. But Sterling, you are right, and I have a full-time day job that's very demanding, and I'd like to be involved and spearhead if possible, but certainly I'm not beholden to that. There's others who are more qualified, certainly there are. Just stand up and step forward, and we'll help, and I'll help you in any way to make this thing happen quickly. But thank you for bringing that up, Sterling, because a lot of people approach us and assume that we are full-time, paid staff and all that, and we're not. We operate on fumes of funding generally, but I like to think that we do an awful lot with what we've got. And you're welcome to uplift the funding as well for New Energy.
Comment about this. I applaud your effort. I think what you're describing really needs to be done. It strikes me that in the new energy field, there are several technologies that could do with testing, but there's a larger range of technologies that aren't ready for testing yet, that really are in the developmental stage. The inventors have seen aspects of it work, but it's not ready for a rigorous protocol. And these ones really need to be nurtured rather than tested.
And that's true, and that should not stop. But that nurturing should be going on with the local contacts of the inventor. That's the friends and family. That's the first circle that should come around any technology. But what's been happening, unfortunately, is a lot of extravagant performance claims been propagated that have brought a lot of attention and time and material resources that ended up being totally wasted. And I want to just see an end to that, because I've invested a lot of my time in that too, and I've seen my colleagues put their time and reputation on the lines here and have come under heavy criticism at times because they wanted to believe things on face value, and things did not pan out, and several times on end. And it's just like it's time to be done and move forward. So the nurturing of the infant stages, the incubation stages of an idea, those are totally valid and should go on. I'm really talking about something a little bit different. I'm talking about a stage to definitely identify something that's real and ready for support toward the market.
So there have been testing labs such as Earth Tech International, which have not really been very successful. At the University of Colorado, I'm planning and actually have engaged in developing some of these technologies, but more in this way of nurturing and positive testing. Just because it seems to me that a lot of these need that.
Thank you for doing that too. That's a great service you're providing. Well, I think that wraps up our presentation here. Thank you so much for your attention, and please spread the word on this. And those of you who would like to see the Plasma Spark video, feel free to contact me on that. But thank you all very much.
Another break. We're going to take a look at the schedule really quickly here. We do? Yep. We are going to be 3:30 is the next presenter.